at this point, I would like to turn it back over to Mr. Schuster, who's really a leading figure in the legal field. So I think we all have a lot to learn today. And yeah, thank you so much. Perhaps, yeah, I'll turn off the share now.
Great, Jonathan, thank you very much. And it's wonderful to be here, an opportunity to speak to a large number of high school students. I have one daughter who is now in 10th grade and making some of the decisions that you face, and another daughter who just graduated college and has a career in teaching. I don't know that my younger daughter will decide. It's up to her. Law is an incredibly broad area. Whether you practice law or use legal training as a stepping stone for another career. Every area of society in which you may have interest or want to participate has lawyers who specialize in that particular area. Some lawyers are really things, others are more generalists. And of course, some areas and some types of practice are more suitable for people with particular personalities, as well as entail different lifestyle choices. What I'd like to do today is first introduce myself and speak about my career path. Second, speak about how you can prepare for a legal career, the types of things for you to think about in terms of personal development and courses of study, and identifying potential areas of law in which you may have an interest. Third, to give you more detail about my area of practice and why I chose it, and what areas of practice opportunity. And then we can speak about how you can learn the profession, and lastly, to talk about a stepping stone, for other careers. I have, clients and friends who went to law school and either never practiced law or chose time as a lawyer to go into something else, their legal training, to be very, very helpful. In terms of that, I've been practicing as an attorney for over 35 years, do deals in the corporate area with some focus on national and trans-border work, particularly involving China over the last 15 years. I am chair of the corporate securities department at McLaughlin and Stern, and also chair of our China practice. We have several native attorneys on our staff who are invaluable in with residents of China and companies based in China doing business in the United States. The law firm has about 125 attorneys, which by the standards of today, size. When I graduated law school in the early 1980s, barely any law firms in America with over 100 lawyers. There are now firms with 2,000 or 3,000 lawyers, several dozen of that size. And that is because it is easier for firms within the United States to have offices in different states, and also for firms to have offices around the world. And I'll discuss more as to why I feel particularly happy at a firm of the size that I've been at now for 25 years. I grew up in New York. I attended a working class high school on Long Island. And there I never met a lawyer. In fact, I didn't meet a lawyer until I was a junior in college. For high school, I attended where I focused on government and economics, particularly on East Asia and economic development. when I was a junior in college and began to think seriously about a career and decided I may want to attend law school. I was fortunate that my girlfriend's roommate, her father was a lawyer, so I had to speak to him and learn more. He was a corporate finance attorney, and I'd always thought I had an interest in business. Then I took the appropriate entrance exams, applied to law, was accepted at New York University, which is one of the top half dozen law schools in the United States, but was still not sure if I wanted to be an attorney. And I thought that if I could find enough challenge in another business, I would try that. And also because my parents were of fairly modest means, I was told that if I wanted to go to law school, which is a 3-year commitment, I would need to pay for it. And that made me also focus on whether that's something I wanted to do for the next 3 years. So I took a job, I requested a deferment from NYU, and spent 1.5 years as a commodities trader for an large international commodities concern, lived out west. And after doing that for a year, I realized I did want to go to law school. And for the critical thinking and narrative and complexity of transactions and legal problems, and returned to New York, went to NYU. I had wanted to pursue an interest in trans-border transactions. Took a job at a firm that represented a significant number of Japanese trading companies and Korean trading companies. At the time, we're talking about the early 1980s. There really was very little contact, commercial contact or political contact between the United States and China. I then worked at that firm for about 2 years, decided I wanted to my experience. That was a small firm with about 20 attorneys, very personal. But I went to what was then the second largest law firm in the United States with about 250 attorneys. Practiced there for 6 years, and then decided to find a firm that was somewhat smaller. All this time I was doing transactional work, a mix of both domestic, entirely United States oriented clients and foreign clients. Of course, even when representing foreign clients, it was to deal with aspects of U.S. law, investments in the United States. Then I decided that working at a very, very large firm was somewhat bureaucratic, and more control over my life. And I went to work at a smaller firm, and have been with my current firm for 25 years, during which time we've grown from about 20 attorneys to about 125 attorneys, primarily in New York, also with offices in Florida and Connecticut. At the firm, about 15 years ago, I started a practice, and over the years have gone to China probably 2 or 3 times a year, although given the current pandemic, I haven't been there since last December. I look forward to going back. I all have clients in Europe who have done transit in the United States, primarily in the technology space, Sweden and the United Kingdom. As an attorney, I helped one of my clients, a small insurance company, grow from a very small business to a $2 billion company. I was fortunate to serve on the board of directors, and I was chosen in part because of my legal background, and had served as their outside attorney for a number of years, and then years just as a director. As an example of someone who changes career, the founder of that company was a sole practitioner as an attorney, decided to start an insurance company, raised a few $1 million. I helped him raise more, and over the course of 20 years, grew to a $2 billion NASDAQ company before it was sold. We've done it without his legal training. I always prefer private practice, where I can enjoy being an entrepreneur and clients. And I am currently with a pretty broad variety of clients, which is reasons I enjoy the practice of law. Variety of types of individuals that I represent, and I enjoy with their legal problems. How you prepare because the law is really so broad and touches on so many areas. At the early stage of your training, particularly in high school, it's to learn more about yourself and understand what you enjoy, what is it that you're passionate about, where are your interests, and we like to learn about. I mean, a lot of law learning, either learning the law, learning about a client, learning about an industry, and then critically thinking about it. And you'll spend many hours, regardless of your occupation, whether as a lawyer or otherwise, learning and being as a lawyer, very precise and logical. And once you identify areas that you're interested in, and you determine that, if you determine you want to be a lawyer, you may be able to mold your career around an area of interest. But also, it's helpful so that when you go to work every day, you will enjoy the challenges. There's any gain aspects, and also it's very challenging aspects. But it's also important to give some thought as to, over time, lifestyle you want, what type of person you are in terms of your willingness to take risk, or be more or less dependent on your own skills, developing business. There's no specific courses to study, whether in school or in college. People with science and math backgrounds can easily become outstanding attorneys and have the necessary verbal and narrative skills and focus on areas of law that are very dependent on mathematics and science. If there's one thing or two things that I think that are very important to develop, is writing and speaking skills. College and even law school sometimes doesn't do as good a job as I think that they should in teaching you how to write well, how to write carefully, how to write concisely. For that, you need someone to really edit your work and those type of communication skills, whether writing or speaking, in a class or organization or extracurricular activity that lets you do that. I think gives you skills that are invaluable, as an attorney, because you're doing much more than just, reading and responding. You need sometimes I feel like a teacher, walking a client through a complex structure or trying to understand their business or their background, their problem, and then having to really write about it in very precise language and be able to argue on that person's behalf in a negotiation. In terms of identifying areas of law that may suit your personality and interests, I had a law professor who once said that is really just about anything is suitable. If you like to argue and be in an adversarial situation, then those are characteristics of many litigators who find themselves doing trial, whether criminal work or handling civil disputes, contracts, and non-criminal matters. If you have an interest that's more in building a business and long-term projects, then corporate or transactional law, which is more suitable, for my personality. There's plenty of times when I have to be adversarial, but I enjoy building projects and building businesses. Someone who has an interest in psychology would be well suited for family law, which involves people who are preparing to get married or getting divorced, and you feel that my wife specialized in, and she had to learn very intimately the personalities and emotional pressures of her clients. Something I wouldn't have the patience for. If you are very focused in science or mathematics, an area where that is absolutely necessary is patent law. Math, technology, and the importance of technology in any business. That interest in science and math and technology applies to many industries, not just helping someone, patent an invention. But there are attorneys who specialize in technology or biotech. I have a partner who is very interested in charitable work, and she specializes in not-for-profit work. These general areas of law, if your interest is really in service, it's not just you work not only for charities, but many government agencies or other organizations which need legal assistance, and many individuals who are of very modest means who need legal representation. There's a tremendous shortage, in America of lawyers who can serve the poor, who can serve even working class individuals in navigating through all the issues that they face. And of course, what specialty you choose, as in virtually any profession, has different potential financial rewards, and so different, you know, potential hours. People who work at smaller firms tend to be more generalists. They may do not just corporate work, but real estate, non-transactional work. They may do some work in litigation. The larger the firm, the more specialization. My firm, we have about 15 attorneys who really just do corporate and securities. I get involved in other specialties. I know what I don't know and use the attorneys in those areas. But I have clients who from time to time get involved in litigation or have real estate or matters that involve estate or even criminal matters. And there are other attorneys who are experts at that, and I enjoy learning about those areas of law, but sticking to my specialty. And also, a choice to be made is whether you are very entrepreneurial or provides an opportunity to really develop your own client base and control your own hours and be your own boss. Or some people, based on their personality or the area of law that they choose to go into, have preference for working for a corporation or for the government, which can be very, and sometimes not having to go out and develop clients and generate revenue and just focus on the law and just focus on projects that someone else is providing to you has certain advantages and creates a little more certainty going forward. And many lawyers develop tremendous careers doing very interesting things, you know, for the government. The United States government or state or local governments use lawyers at every level. And one of the reasons I left the large firm that I was at to go to a smaller place was really to have more control over the types of clients I could choose, have more freedoms to what I could do, and have a little more control over my hours. But I was only able to do that because I really had the training and experience and connections that I had developed over time. There's my area of practice. As I said, I focus on corporate and transactional work. I had an interest, as I mentioned, going back to college in international affairs and international relations. And over time, I've been able to do more trans-border work, which has allowed me to travel, develop relationships with people around the world, and learn about different cultures. Fundamentally, I'm still doing U.S. law, whether it's helping a Chinese company go public in the United States, go public, or helping a Chinese company make an acquisition of an American company or be sold to an American company. But I really enjoy learning about people and their backgrounds and learning about different countries and visiting them. The variety of work that I have, as I don't specialize in a particular industry or a particular type of transaction, allows me to learn about very many differences in fields. And I also enjoy working with entrepreneurs. Even the public companies that I represent tend to be controlled by their founder, who are often very creative and who just need counseling. And it's something I find very rewarding to have a client come to me and want to use me and hire me to help them with a problem, to help them grow their business, to help see them through and develop a long-term relationship. And I prefer that to just having, focusing on one very large or two very large clients. But many things depend on opportunities that develop over time and opportunities that develop for yourself. It's hard to say what the market will be like for attorneys when you graduate law school. The world is a very volatile place, and different fields, different markets, different opportunities change more than in the past. I think it's safe to say that technology and software related areas of the law will play an increased role in all industries, and not just in technology. And also that learning to use technology is invaluable. That I can do at what is a modest-sized firm that allows us to work with the largest organizations in the world, and to be able to communicate and process data and do all the things that were heard of. I started practicing law, in the early 1980s. Before FedEx. It was like ancient history, let alone modern computers. So there's more and more things that a law firm can do and still turn out quality work. Specific areas of practice. So much more is technology oriented, and so many more of the transactions that I see a technology component than they had 20 years ago. If you'd like to learn more about the profession, I suggest you talk to different attorneys who have different specialties, organizations, get a sense as to what they do day to day, they enjoy, what pressures they face, and what was their career path. I know for some potential careers, it's useful to have an internship. That's more difficult for the legal profession when you're in high school or even college, because law firms, when they're hiring interns, have a preference for students who are in law school, both because law students have already received some legal training in terms of how to do legal research or legal analysis, and also the firms are looking to hire, potential future attorneys coming out of law school. At my firm, we've had the occasional college student, but it's really rather rare. But I have found it valuable when I was in law school and deciding on the type of place I wanted to work, and the fact I did want to do corporate work or something else, or work in private practice or go to work for the government. At that point, I took internships in different areas and spoke to attorneys. And I would recommend, if you're considering being a lawyer, talking to different attorneys, before, while you're still in college, or even in high school. The decision you may make is, even if you decide to go to law school, as I said, that law can be a stepping stone to other careers. Many people get the legal training and then go work in another area of business or government or politics, or several years as an attorney, find that they'd rather be on the client. One of my clients for 30 years went to MIT, then Harvard Law School, didn't practice law for a day. He had a interest in doing work for the underprivileged. He moved to Brazil, where he was involved in training workers in different areas of industry. Eventually developed that into a business, which he sold, and made enough money that he could do other entrepreneurial ventures that all had a social flavor to them. I mentioned earlier a client who had been a solo practitioner who founded an insurance company. There are many instances of businesses who take someone from their legal department and then they move laterally and do work on the business. One of my best friends went to work at a large restaurant chain called Red Lobster, and over time he became responsible for their business development and spent the last 2 years opening restaurants, expanding into China, and does less and less law and more business and development work. Law school, provides not only a prerequisite for becoming an attorney and taking the bar exam, but also valuable training, in a degree that many businesses look at with favor, because of training that allows you to learn to think critically, to be highly organized, and to develop writing and communication skills. With that, I'd like to give everyone the opportunity, to ask questions, and if there's anything else I can speak about.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Schuster. I think that was very illuminating talk. I think law is something that a lot of people maybe have a misconception of. They see it in the media, they see it in the movies. They think the law is only in the court or only arguing, but in fact, you're saying your role has almost become like a business consultant, or anyway, a very key member of as businesses grow, advising them. So I think that is interesting perspective that not all of us are aware of.
Yeah, I think that's very apt, in that from public media, you think of lawyers primarily as criminal attorneys in a courtroom, defending someone who's allegedly committed some violent crime or stolen money from a large number of people, and then even taking that one step further, you think that all work is trial work, even if it's arguing about contracts or divorce or other areas that end up in court. And that is only a percentage of attorneys, and even attorneys who decide to specialize in trial work spend a lot of time preparing to go for trial. So there are some areas of trial work where you're spending a lot of time for a judge, and others where you're spending a lot of time doing research and making motions. But it's even those who are on trial, there's little resemblance to what you see on television.
Sure, yeah, it can be a little bit deceiving. Yeah,
more,
I can definitely understand.
Happens in a 1-hour television show than in 6 months of most patients.
I'm sure. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I liked you mentioned that speaking skills, writing skills, although a law is broad, those will always be kind of core competencies that mark any good lawyer. And that's something that maybe is not completely trained in the high schools, colleges, law school to the extent it should be. I have some questions then, some of which I think you touched on, but we got some questions in the chat. One is a good one. What are some good undergraduate majors for law school? Although there is no pre-law major, do you have any recommendations on undergraduate majors?
Whatever you're interested in. If you decide to focus on English or political science, I mean, sometimes those are seen as a track for law because they're political science or government obviously deals with the laws of that. But really, if your interest is more in science or math, those are still fields where you have to learn, logic and critical thinking. I would say whichever area you choose, to take the opportunity, to learn to work well. It could be an extracurricular activity such as journalism, but there's no area that is pre-law. I find it's helpful to have real educational background, so that when I'm working with a company, it may have a scientific orientation, or it may have a purely marketing or retail orientation, or an artistic orientation. And the more different things that I can understand, the better.
Sure, that is. There's strength from a diversity of knowledge and background in the field of law. That's
yeah, and there are many attorneys, because while I would say that more of them have backgrounds in the social sciences and in the hard sciences, those who end up going to law school just because it is very old, both in terms of reading and writing and speaking, than those who go into the sciences as an undergraduate and may then continue because of that interest into soft mathematics or other similar areas. But if it's still very easy if you have a science or math background to transition to law school if you know the narrative skills.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I think that's a very good point. We have another question, which you did mention a little bit about the proliferation of technology and AI. This is kind of flipping it back. Is legal work being replaced to a certain extent by AI, or should students be concerned, or how can they be on the right side of studying law so that they're needed?
I think technology has been a tremendous boon to the legal profession. And I don't see lawyers being replaced by computers. Quite the contrary, computers and AI are a tremendous tool. Simpler things, simpler process. I mean, those are going to be more easily generated or handled paralegals by not full lawyers. But even now, using computers and AI to do additional research, to look at things more carefully, to be able to review more cases. To give you an example, I brought to the firm a rather complex litigation that had almost 2 million documents involving a Canadian company with interests in Panama and Spain. My client was a United States-oriented banking firm. The only way to 2 million documents in a timely fashion was with AI software that could look for key words and key concepts. And there are companies who provide that service. That did replace something that did once as a summer associate before computers, when a large firm hired a room full of people to read all of this and take different colored stickers and put them in the margin and write down which page and which sentence had which reference to what concept or who said what. That type of more menial work is going to be replaced, but what happens is transactions have become more complex. Smaller firms that could never have handled, a major litigation get involved because now there are AI tools that enable them, to process a large number of documents, and the ability to do transactions more quickly. I'm dating myself again, but even when Federal Express came out, you knew you could have an extra day before someone could respond because they weren't getting the FedEx until the next afternoon. Now you hear back right away. I send an email to China, and the next morning I come to work, they've already worked on it all day. That type of speed only increases the number of transactions that can go on around the world. And as things become more complex, and whether you like it or not, our government gets more and more involved in more areas of business and regulation, and different areas of society. There's more of a need for lawyers. And if your interest is in serving the poor or working class or large or need, that is an area for which there's always a need for attorneys.
I think that's a beautiful, fantastic example. It's a highly visual example. The idea 2 million documents. Where would that case be without the technology? So it really does, I guess, really bolster, what you're able to accomplish, the workload, the types of cases. So I think, there might be a bit of a misconception that AI is taking over, but in fact, in many ways, it's actually a really great tool to improve and broaden perhaps the type of work that can be done in the legal field. That's very interesting. And we do always have students looking for internships. Now, I know you had said that it's better in law school to be doing this, which makes sense, but we got a question that said, well, how does one go into finding internships if they are in law school or after law school? We do have a number of students who are actually studying in law school now.
Well, let me just correct one thing. Even before law school, there are people who are in college or who graduate college and take jobs as paralegals or secretaries or more clerical positions at law firms full-time or for a summer. And in that way, while they might be doing some administrative work, they get a very good understanding as to what the attorney that they're working with do on a day-to-day basis. When she graduated college, took a job at a law firm in New York and worked as what's called a paralegal. Not a secretary, but not a lawyer either, where she was leases, real estate leases. It is not something she planned on doing for more than 6 months, but it gave her a good sense as to what the real estate lawyers in that firm did, and that she didn't want to be a real estate lawyer, but she still wanted to go to law school. When you and in that way, there are opportunities for and college graduates who get interested as to whether they want to devote 3 years to being a lawyer don't want to try another career, want something connected to a law firm. And those types of positions would be available through a college placement office, or even through placement agencies, or contacting law firms directly. Once you're in law school, internships, the introduction for internships is often done through the school placement office, that has law firms who come to campus, or come to campus, at least post notices on campus that they're looking for summer interns. Law firms often come to campus, or make their needs known in the fall, let's say in September, October, November, the year before you would start for the summer, far in advance, because they know they're hiring a certain number of people every summer, or for graduates, every September following graduation. Smaller firms like mine, we may not decide how many people we're going to have for an internship until spring. We don't know what our needs are. We don't know what the projected work is, because we don't want people just sitting around. And then while summer internships are what most people in law school think most about in terms of internships, opportunities during the school year, that it's hard to do for law school because your workload is heaviest and you're really learning how to handle the law school workload, but especially second year and third year, law firms may be looking for someone to work part-time during the school year. Once again, given lower level work, but still as an opportunity to go in and show your interest, your skills, and to learn, about different practice areas.
Thank you. And that's really crucial, just to be aware of, school resources, how the hiring season works, approaching it the right way. And thank you.
And one other thing I would suggest is many law schools maintain relationships with their alumni, and whether those alumni are, some law schools, the alumni tend to, work at smaller firms or be solo practitioners as opposed to the big national firms. Others, alumni may go to work, in government or in different organizations, and they are often very willing and eager to and meet with people, students, at least on an informational basis, and perhaps even offer some sort of internship. And whether it's the placement office or other directories, it's something I did when there were times I was, looking to change firms, was, look for, someone who had gone to NYU Law School, and it was a connection that holding on to.
Tap into the networks you have. This is a critical skill and useful. We have one more question. I know we're getting close to time. One more question. We had, what is something that is going from the audience that an Asian student, or just we could say foreign student, but born here or not, but just Asian student background, what can they do to better prepare for a career in law school? From the audience.
Well, remember you're practicing U.S. law, but if you want to go into an area that involves what I do, which is some cross-border work, so that we have transactions with one or more Asian countries, and language skills, that can set you apart from other applicants, for a particular position. And of course, the needs change depending on relation with Frank right now. To be honest, it's harder for Chinese graduates of law school to find positions than it was 5 years ago. But that's an ebb and a flow. I'm convinced that will come back. I would say the other thing for Asian students to do, and obviously this depends in part on whether you're or overseas, is to really develop your English language skills. And this just doesn't just apply to Asian students, but students from any foreign country. Most of the clients of the firm, of any firm, are going to be English speaking. And you want, the partners at the firm, you want to have client contact, and the partners at the firm, in order to have you speak to clients or to have you to do research or write or draft, whether it's papers for court or contracts, it's even more important to have good English language skills. The more fluent, the better.
Okay. I think that is great, between the lecture and some great questions from the audience. Thank you so much for the time. Any parting words or anything else?
Well, if any of you have any follow-up questions that you think of later, I'm sure that you can give them my contact information.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please, anybody with questions, you know how to contact us. We'll be sending out some follow-up, and if there's any questions want to pass along to Mr. Schuster, we're happy to do so. And yeah, thank you so much to everybody who participated. Thank you so much, Mr. Schuster, and yeah, have a great night.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.